Commander-in-Chief Joe Biden, our president, has finally answered some extremely crucial questions that pertains to the Middle East in the aftermath of the strikes that he okayed over Yemen to attack Houthi targets. Now, what's interesting is that Joe Biden was actually attending an event in a coffee shop, and a reporter just started to fire off some questions that pertain to national security. Nothing about the coffee shop, nothing about the event. These essentially were the questions. Number one, are you still talking to your Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin? Number two, are we in an all-out proxy war now within the Middle East? Number three, do you think Iran got the message and are we going to go to war with Iran? And number four, and I think the biggest one, do you think Houthis are terrorists? And I probably had to bleep out that last one because you know how YouTube operates in other platforms, but the word starts with the letter T. Now, why would Joe Biden be asked, are you talking to your highest ranking general overseeing your military? This is because Lloyd Austin is still in a hospital and is still essentially operating a command control center out of a hospital. I think that's pretty badass. I think that's great. However, Lloyd Austin did break major protocol by not telling Joe Biden he has some medical issues, because this could in turn affect how Lloyd Austin operates. Nonetheless, it does look like Lloyd Austin is doing okay. You have to understand, again, this is a massive protocol to break. Lloyd Austin is overseeing the entire military, but Joe Biden, it came out that he wasn't talking to his general for over a week, and then all of a sudden he found out his general is in the hospital. Nonetheless, Joe Biden says he is still in contact and is in current contact with his general, so that's a good thing to hear. Number two, and the biggest one, and this is going to be the most contested one, so go ahead and leave your comments down below. Are we in an all-out proxy war in the Middle East as it pertains to Yemen? Now, this is a little complex because many people, and I think the majority of people will say, yes, we are in a proxy war in the Middle East. As it pertains to Yemen, these strikes were more retaliation strikes. You might actually almost put it in the defensive category for strikes because the U.S. military did not go after Houthi members, as in like Houthi fighters. The U.S. military went after the capabilities for the Houthis to go after civilian cargo ships. Again, remember, we waited about 2 months before actually striking any Houthi targets, let alone Houthi members. So Joe Biden saying we are not in a proxy war, again, inside of Yemen, maybe he's right. Outside of Yemen, I find it hard to believe we are not in a proxy war right now. Go ahead and look at the statistics in Iraq. Ever since October 7th happened between Israel and Hamas, we're talking about over 60 attacks happened between Syria and Iraq before any actions were taken. And that's when Joe Biden decided go after infrastructure that pertains to the Islamic resistance of Iraq. But then when we get to number 100 of attacks against U.S. forces, this is when Joe Biden actually says, okay, we need to be more on the offensive. Let's be a little more aggressive. And we actually start to see an AC-130 gunship take action. Now, there's a little bit of a calm in the storm at the time of making this video and at the time where the U.S. military conducts massive attacks over Yemen. There hasn't really been any strikes over in Iraq and over in Syria. This might be because right now the U.S. military is in a massive threat of getting kicked out of Iraq. And it does look like the militia members in Iraq who are backed by Iran, I think they're trying to see what exactly Iraq is going to do. What is the government going to do? Keep putting more political pressure on the United States to just kick them out with diplomacy? Or are we going to see an increase in violence? But again, the main question, are we in a proxy war in the Middle East? Joe Biden says no. I'm going to lean more in the yes side. You guys let me know what you think. Number three, did Iran get the message? And are we going to go to war with Iran? What Joe Biden responded with is Iran does not want to go to war with the U.S. and Iran did get the message. And I actually do happen to agree with Joe Biden. There's a reason why Iran is using their proxy units, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis and other elements in Iraq to go after the United States indirectly. Everyone knows it's happening. The United States knows it's happening. But it's one of those things where the U.S. can't go after the country of Iran. This would absolutely boil into a massive conflict. And look, the United States does not want this. And to be fair, it does look like Iran does not want this either. So I think Joe Biden is accurate in saying Iran does not want a war with the United States. I think Iran would rather go to war with Israel if they're going to risk it all. But we also have to understand Iran did strongly condemn the attacks over Yemen, saying that the U.S. and the British broke international law, war criminals, if you will, and went after the sovereignty of Yemen, even though the United States and really the majority of the world disagrees with this fact. Nonetheless, again, Joe Biden did say Iran did get the message, but we will not be going to war with Iran. Now, the absolute biggest point is that Joe Biden did call the Houthis terrorists. Now, if you don't know why this is a big point, you need to understand that the Trump administration actually put the Houthis on the terror watch list or on the terror list. And where this became a major issue is that because we put them in the bad guy list, this means that we were not able to effectively help with the humanitarian efforts over in Yemen, to include Saudi Arabia helping Yemen, the people of Yemen. If you're unaware, go ahead and look up the statistics. It's one of the worst humanitarian crises the world has ever seen, and you've probably never heard of it because that's how our media operates. Now, what Joe Biden did in 2021 is that they realized we have to legally take the Houthis off of this list so we can start to give more and more supplies, food, oil, resources to the people of Yemen to make sure they survive as people. This is the right thing to do as the United States. But now the United States seems to be facing an issue that Israel is facing, as the United States has been backed into a corner, to include other allies like the British, where economics are starting to get messed with all the way across the world. The United States has no other option but to go after the Houthis. But again, the question asked to Joe Biden, do you consider the Houthis terrorists? He says yes, but the government says no. So now you can see where there's a bit of conflicting matters here. Something else that you're probably going to see in the future is that the U.S. government, will unfortunately have no other option but to put the Houthis on the watch list once again. The reason why this is unfortunate, I agree with that, but when you start to put the Houthis on a watch list, that means they're probably going to start stealing more materials and aid from their own people in Yemen. Because look, once you put them on that watch list, this means the United States is A-okay with taking further actions against actual Houthi members and not only specific targets like radar sites, runways, things like that. So I'm really curious to see whether or not the Biden administration, how quickly they're going to put the Houthis on this watch list. Really, the ball is in the court of the Houthis. How serious are they going to be on whether or not they're going to perform these retaliation attacks back on either U.S. targets or Western targets? Or what the Houthis really did say is they're just going to still go after civilian ships. But if the Houthis had the opportunity, and they've already tried it, if they could go after like the USS Carney, who's been absolutely defending the world economics, stopping a lot of strikes. If you don't know this, go look up the Carney stats. They're like 30-0 right now in defensive operations, and now being on the offense. The Houthis would love to take out a ship like that, but they just don't have the capabilities, especially now. So we're going to see what happens. Again, the Houthis are backed by Iran. Whatever Iran says, the Houthis will do. And however much money Iran gives the Houthis, that's how the Houthis are funded, through money from Iran and through supplies and training. So again, the Houthis can put out as much statements as they want that they're going to retaliate, but actions do speak louder than words in this matter. The one thing, in my opinion, to really look out for is the actions in Iraq. Again, a lot of political pressure is happening on the U.S. military in Iraq, and it can be an extremely bad look if all of a sudden diplomacy says, you're kicked out, get out of our country. Because what you need to know is that the prime minister of Iraq is heavily backed by Iranian government officials or Iranian-backed militia groups who are really backing this specific leader in Iraq. And that is one of the reasons why many people believe the U.S. military is getting kicked out. The Iraqi prime minister has given a lot of props to Iran, saying we need to combine our efforts, we need to work together. In fact, the Iraqi prime minister even stated that the only way that the U.S. is ever going to stop their combat operations and all this violence is going to stop is if the war in Israel stops. And since no one sees that war ending anytime soon, the prime minister says that means that combat operations are not going to stop in Iraq. So, yeah, Joe Biden gave very brief answers and has been trying to lay super low. This is the new strategy of our U.S. military today. Again, it's been almost 2 months of attacks and retaliation strikes from the Houthis, either going directly for Israel, going after U.S. assets, and actually seizing cargo ships. you have to admit 2 months is a very long time to actually retaliate. The old U.S. military, like in 2007, 2005, I know I'm calling it old, but the U.S. military has been adapting really fast. Back then, we would have striked immediately, and then that would have caused some more chaos. So you got to give some credit to today's modern military to be a little more patient and to make sure we don't get sucked into an all-out proxy war. So again, that is the current situation. Let me know what you guys think about all of this down below in the comments, and we will see you guys later.